Again.
Hey, what a long time no see.
10 seconds ago. It's a lot of time.
Nice shirt.
Thank you.
Are those chairs comfortable, Luis? I never sat in one of those, but I always see people on Twitch having them.
Yeah, it
Yeah?
is. Like at the end of the day, you don't have pain on your back and anything like that. It's
It's
physical.
comfortable.
I would say that's a low bar, but it's important that you don't have back pain.
It's not the most comfortable chair, but at least it make you like in this position.
It's
It
good.
makes you sit straight. It's cool.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
nice.
Oh, by the way, it's recording. So don't say anything weird.
Don't say anything weird. Pedro said joining, but I'm not seeing here.
If you're there, give us a sign.
I'm looking at the participant list. He's not there. I have something to entertain us while we wait for Pedro.
Your game?
It's Junie!
She's now grabbing everything, so.
Of course. Yes, she can.
Hello. Zeg maar hallo. Hallo.
Can she say daddy?
No, she only says mama. The only word she knows.
Boop!
Is he inside? Oh, okay. That's fine. Can you close the door, Carmen? Thank you. Oh, Pedro has internet problems.
I bet he has the same company as me.
Yeah,
Which one?
it probably has Nosh.
Nosh.
Nosh. Oh yeah, I used to have Nosh.
And now you're a cool person without Nosh.
I have Mayo now. Hey, Pedro, senior UX designer, comma plan.
Exactly, yeah. So everyone knows what I do at GitLab.
Yeah. The guys were asking, do you have Nosh or a better provider?
Vodafone.
Oh, snap.
I have HBO now.
Oh, you have HBO? Is it good?
I haven't tried it yet. I'm waiting till the end of April to activate the offer so I can enjoy Game of Thrones.
Ah, okay. And
yeah, the next season is coming up in the beginning.
Last season.
The last, yeah.
Okay, Pedro, this is your meeting.
Yeah.
We're recording already.
Cool, awesome. I don't know if you've created the YouTube channel already or not.
I did not, no.
Okay, so I already added one of the next steps to the agenda. So yeah, first of all, let's use the same agenda document from the last meeting.
Can you post a link?
Yep, I posted it in Zoom. Yeah, and as I was saying, I already added one next step at the bottom of today's agenda. Yob, upload call recording to YouTube channel.
Very good.
So you don't forget. Yeah, so yeah, first of all, thank you so much for everyone for your time and participation in the survey. and I'll get to the point where I'll ask your opinion about the whole survey. But first of all, I want to go through some of the findings and conclusions. I don't know, have you received email with the results already or not?
No.
No.
I think so.
Okay. So I will share the results after. I thought it would send an email automatically, but essentially I will share this. Well, I can share it right now. So let me share everyone. Okay, there you go. And also sharing in Zoom and putting it in the agenda. Yeah, so there you can see I kind of organized and added your beautiful personality images that you submitted. And I went through it, a lot of fun reading everything that you wrote, really cool. So I compiled some of the findings and some of the things that I found were common throughout your responses, and I listed them there in the agenda. So the first one is about what is remote.com? How would remote.com present themselves to someone if they ask them, what do you do for a living? Basically the 30-second elevator pitch. And there are three things that I found were key in the descriptions that you made and were kind of common throughout. And the first thing is the what. So first of all, it's better if I share my screen so we're all looking at the same thing. So the first thing is the what, right? And I found that one of the things that was mentioned a lot of times was how beneficial it can be for people to work remotely. And basically the what for remote.com is we want to help people get their lives back. We want to help people reclaim their lives, right? So that is the what. And how do you go about helping people get their lives back? And some of the things that were mentioned was we're the single best place to start working remotely, to find jobs, people, and help, and any tool you need to start working remotely. And then the why strongly believes and advocates that remote work saves people by allowing them to work from home and stay with their loved ones. So this is why we're doing all of this, right? But one thing that I found was missing when compared to the competition is what makes remote.com different from every other job board. So one of the things that we might say is that it's the single best place. So we don't only have the jobs, but you can also find the people, the companies, we have tools, we have help. Does everyone agree that that is the differentiating factor, or is there anything else that could set remote.com apart, and so that people could look at remote.com and say, well, that's one thing that they have that would be impossible to replicate in another website?
No, I think that's it. I think the most important thing is that it's our focus to help more organizations and people work remotely. It's not our focus to make money selling job ads, which is what every other platform on the internet does now. We see the fact that we have a job board just as a function to get to what we want, right? Like it's not our main goal is to sell job ads. Our main goal is to help more organizations and people work remotely or work more flexibly. And that gives us immense strength, because if we sell enough job ads, we have the freedom and we will spend the time on building other things or doing other things that we think are beneficial. So I think that's an important differentiator with other competitors. I think most of the competitors that we listed are either just big job boards or they are side projects that just make money being a job board. So. And there's a bunch of smaller things like we might have some sort of ranking or something, feature things, but those are a product of the way that we work and our focus to help this, right? So our focus is what will drive us to, for instance, make it easier to identify great companies and make it easier to differentiate different types of remote work. But that's all just a product of the fact that we are focused on changing the world and not focused on selling job ads.
Cool. Yeah. Does anyone else want to comment? Okay. So after this, the mission ends. This will, of course, has to be refined afterwards. I asked you to upload an image of a person that you thought embodies what remote.com should be. And it's really interesting when you look at the images that were uploaded. All of these people are or were leaders and inspirational leaders in each of their fields, right? So we have Dalai Lama, who was submitted by Marcelo. Yob submitted Jason Fried from Basecamp, Eduardo Franklin Roosevelt, and then we also have Elon Musk with this very interesting photo that I have never seen of him by Luis. So this is really funny to see and interesting to notice that there is this pattern of people that really wanted to change the world and the status quo and in their different fields. And that's the first thing that I found was really interesting. And then 3 other common things I found was the kindness and selflessness of these personalities. So using your own quotes, so help people get better jobs and get a better life, prioritizes his and his team's personal lives over financial gains, and is genuinely worried about other people's problems, and also make a better life for everyone, right? So this is always putting others before or in first place before themselves. The other thing is leading a meaningful life, simple and uncomplicated. So let go of all things that aren't important. I really loved this part. Marcelo was really, really interesting. And I thought it really captured well the essence of Dalai Lama. And also then humble, right? Which is one thing that Yob wrote about Jason Fried. And finally, this ambitiousness that we were talking about just before in the mission, which is to change the world, right? Make a better world, saving the world from home. And this was also a really nice quote that Eduardo wrote for Franklin Roosevelt. Anything that anyone wants to comment? Are you surprised by these results?
Not at all.
Yeah, I feel like you were all doing this like side by side.
No, we weren't. We didn't even discuss it. It's it's funny that it turned out so similar.
Yeah, it's really nice. Luis, you want to say something?
No.
Okay. It's okay. So this was all very interesting, and these points: kindness and selflessness, meaningful life, simple, uncomplicated, changing the world, ambitious. All of these 3 points will then feed back into the branding, but also, well, not only the branding, but this design persona, right? So the design persona, as you probably were able to see in the beginning of the survey, I tried to explain what it was, and ultimately all of this information will be fed into your handbook, so you can also make better decisions. And instead of having one person with all of the information about how remote.com should behave, should look, should speak, you will have a documentation that everyone can rely on. And as you continue to grow the company and make decisions on your own, you can all rely on the same information and be consistent and be the same person, essentially. Then visual style references. So the first thing is that Airbnb was mentioned twice. So two different people mentioned Airbnb, but ultimately what I found was that with all of the references that you linked to, so we can see them down here, they all share some common things. So simple, understated designs with lots of white space, overall colorful with strong, vivid accent colors. But then at the same time, we have some different approaches that I would like to explore and get your comment on why you chose it versus something else. So some of the examples relied a lot on illustrations and were very subjective and not very concrete when explaining certain subjects. Others relied more on photos, right? And then the other part is some of the examples had a very high-tech look, while others had a very low-tech. So let me show you some of the examples. So let's, for example, pick Basecamp, right? So Basecamp, even by the design and the look that we have in the logo and the typography, the illustration, everything here, even this line, right? Everything looks very low tech. It doesn't, if you look at this page, it doesn't look like a software or a software as a service that people would use. And this example contrasted with, for example, Stripe, where Stripe has a much more high-tech look with all of the devices, these gradients, even the iconography that they're using. So you have this contrast just here in this more low-tech, high-tech. Also this one, which is really nice design by OpenAI, that uses a lot of gradients, very simple, but it looks high-tech, right? Even with the typography that they use. Another example here, for example, Mapbox with their iconography here and these backgrounds, it looks high-tech versus something like this Podium, which with this messaging, even just these screenshots, it doesn't look very high-tech, right? It's a software, but it's very simple and very, even with the colors that they use, very earthly tones, it looks very human. And so I wanted to get your comments. So let me see. So for example, Marcelo, you suggested for an Airbnb, Revolut, and Slack. And as we looked here, so Revolut, let me open it up. So for example, Revolut, it has a very simple look, but at the same time, it kind of feels a bit high-tech compared to Slack, right? Slack with these colors, also this iconography. So what do you think about these different poles of high-tech versus low-tech in the examples that you gave?
I mean, they're not mutually exclusive, especially because remote.com is not just for tech people, right? It will probably have a lot of, tech-related jobs, especially at the beginning, and it's because it's more fluent and will be more common. But even so, it's not just that, right? We want to expand this to all things remote and all jobs that can be done remote, and those that should be able to. Right? So I don't think that the tech part is something that is fundamental. I think that is mostly, and most of the times in the different examples, it's just associated with futuristic websites and platforms that are somehow bringing something new to the table. Like Revolut is one of the first uncomplicated digital banks, right? Stripe, pretty much the same, with the same note, right? They want to look like they're doing something new. They're changing the way you're used to work, and they are, right? I think that's why and how they use futuristic elements. I'm not the reason why I'm not super fond of non-technical is mostly because the examples of non-technical are kind of have some elements of non-simplicity, like even the line that you showed on Basecamp, that's like a wiggly line. it gives you a weird sense of, at least to myself, something that is not tidy, that is not clean, right? And there's really bold letters all over the place. And it gives me an idea, and to myself, that it is something unpolished. And this is not something that I would, especially but this is a personal feeling, that when I'm looking to a platform that I look for, right? It doesn't give me the sense of these guys are doing something newish or breaking some of the status quo. This is my feeling.
Okay. Thank you. Yeah, that makes sense. Job, you want to talk about I know you wrote some comments for each of the references, but anything in particular you want to add compared to Marcelo?
Yeah, I think similar to Marcel, I think that it's not like the two ideas of like high tech and low tech, they can coexist. I think through the fact that they do a very good job of being very obvious. So if you look at Basecamp, what I like about it is not the design, because it's more of a lack of design, right? Like they just say what it is, and all they have is like a little drawing that is like interesting and fun for everybody, and everything is extremely clear and extremely obvious. So the way that they communicate, the visual design even, is very, very clear, in the sense that links have an underline, because that's how links, look to most people. And at the same time, Stripe, which is almost the polar opposite design wise, in that sense, they are very different. But on the other hand, they use their design, they leverage their design to make it very easy to understand what is going on, and to make it very easy to see where should I look and what is the content that is here, right? Like the section about the mobile shows a mobile phone. Developers first shows a bit of code. And they really use design to help them communicate a particular message or several messages, because Stripe is a like crazy complex product, right? So, and I think they do that in a really, really good way. Like they have something super complex, and by offering like a friendly front, they make it a little bit easier to consume all of that without being too much in your face. So yeah, I think it's a similar way of presenting something, and those audiences are of course very different, but it helps that they leverage design in this way. So even though I appreciate the design of Stripe, I think I would not build something like that, because I think the maintenance of that is extremely high, right? Like it's much harder to iterate on a complex design than that. And I think Basecamp swings the other way, where I think it's too, like design-wise, it's too simple. But I like the way that they both think about communicating their message, and I think that is the overlap that I saw there. Also, I like the personality of Basecamp, right? Like they feel opinionated. They feel like, we make choices just for us. Like it's the same as the previous section we discussed, where we're not a follower, and we don't want to be a follower. And I like that a lot. Where Stripe is just extremely ambitious about the way they do things. So I both like them in the fact that they are somewhat unique.
Mm-hmm. Thanks. And Eduardo, you want to? Yeah, you have a very different. You had a different approach to this question. How can you tell us a little bit about it?
Yeah, when I mentioned ergodox, what I try to talk about is that the fact that they know they're helping, and they have their opinion is that they're helping people solving an issue, an health issue, whatever. So I think we need to identify with that and be simple about it. We have a message, we do something, and have a strong opinion on it. So we need to own the remote thing. So that's more my opinion, more than the design itself. Because I really think it's a bit too colorful, and I like it simple. But other than that, I think we just need to own the message.
And there's also, if I may add, something very interesting about ergodox. I reached out to them very recently, and they're very unapologetic about the prices that the pricing that they have, and why. Like they there's, I think it's on the FAQ or something, that they explain why it is a bit on the expensive side of all keywords. And basically they say that they do it because they want to pay people good salaries in Taiwan. That's where things are built, and opposed to all other so they're very much very frontal about it. And when I reached out through email, actually they reached out because I didn't go through the entire checkout process, and they sent me an email asking if everything was fine, if I had any issue, and I just told them, look, I'm looking into the taxes in my home country, and then they said, because it could be quite expensive, and they said that they were aware, but that their pricing was basically fair. The only way they could pay fairly wages to their employees, and they explained why and what is the context. And they're very unapologetic about it, right? They fight for something they believe in. They charge it, and I think it's all worth it.
Yeah, I agree.
Cool. And finally, Luis, anything you want to mention about your choices?
Yeah, I like colorful websites. That's why I mentioned Coinbase, Airbnb. I like a lot, and I like a lot websites that have illustrations. But I want more to have like a mix of both, like real pictures of the real deal, and then illustrations that shows like the concrete thing that we're doing, and not like, as you said, like some subjective illustrations. Yeah, and I think the message of the website should be clear, and the user, so the user don't have to think about what we are doing or what are our service. So that's basically it.
That's a very interesting point about the illustrations and the photos. That's also another thing I wanted to mention, is that some of them, for example, Slack, they use a mix of just that, right? They have photography, their logo is very colored, but then they also use some illustrations, and of course they have emojis and things like that in the product. And at the other end, we also have Airbnb, who I think lately they're very much relying on photography. They have some places with illustration. But the thing about photography versus illustration is that it can be very hard to get photography right compared to illustration. Right?
Yeah, I'm not a fan at all of photography. I think Airbnb pulls it off because it's literally their product, right? Like they even have now services that you can hire a photographer to come to your apartment. And I think if photography is not your product, or it's not a fundamental part of your product, it's very hard to nail it. Like I can imagine we would use photography of like a company that has like an outing, or some of them have offices still, like they have nice pictures of that, and we might use that somewhere. But I think, I mean, I'm sure you were going to say this, Pedro, so sorry for interrupting you, but I'm sure
it's okay.
Like, stock photos, they look stupid. Like most stock photos,
unless it's Harold, right?
Yeah, unless it's Harold. But like the typical stock photo, when I say stock photo, I know that there's high quality stuff, but when I say stock photo, you know exactly what I mean. So that just looks like low quality. And even if you use something like Unsplash kind of pictures, it still looks very generic, which is exactly the opposite of what we want to be. Like we don't want it to be generic. And I think that is a big risk with photography.
Yeah, that's a very good point. And you're completely right about.
And adding more to that, the only reason why Slack pulls it off is because no one actually looks at Slack's homepage. You just download the thing. That's it. And then inside the app, it's all about illustration. I mean, iconography and emoji
and Slack homepage wants to specifically target enterprise executives, right, or enterprise managers, because that's like their audience right now, like not individual use. Like they're not looking for tech pros to look at this site because they are already all using Slack. So they want to, inspire managers of large corporations because that's where their customers are.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think so. This one kind of looks a bit stock photo. This one is a bit more specific for Autodesk, but I understand, and I think at least for the beginning of remote.com brand, it's very difficult to get really good photography. And as you said, unless it's photos of the actual offices, the actual people, done right with specific art direction, it's very difficult to look good. So again, photography looks great, but I would suggest not going through that route right now and keeping it simple. And no one knows what will happen in the future. Maybe you'll get enough information and contacts that you're able to pull off some good photography. Luis, what do you think? Is there anything you want to say to Job and Marcel?
No.
Do you agree or disagree?
I agree. I agree. I don't like at all stock photos. They are too generic.
Yeah, even if you look, for example, and I was just showing this earlier today, someone here at the co-working space, even this website, they use a mix. So there are some of the competitors use photography, and remote.co is one of them that uses a lot of photography with these background photos in almost all pages. And it looks, I don't know, it just looks bland, right? It doesn't have any personality. It's very, I don't know if it refreshes, if it uses a different photo every time I refresh. But if it did, it would be something like, we didn't actually think for a specific photo for this page. We just want to have a photo there. And they have this also in other places.
But it's good to see how a website from 1995 looks.
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay, I upgraded Zoom, so now we are paying for Zoom and we have unlimited minutes. Okay.
Thank you, remote.com. Cool. So moving forward, and it's again, feel free to interrupt any time that you want to say something. It's no problem. That's what we're here for. Or else I could just record this thing and send it to you, and you could watch it. Okay, so then the traits, right? The personality traits, and we had this scale of traits where you would score what you thought remote.com should sound like, or if it would be more warm, more dominant, less dominant, more lively, less lively. And with the results that we had here, you could see some patterns were emerging about where in the scale remote.com would be, right? We would also have some traits where there is not some consensus. I mean, most of the people, for example, for liveliness, voted 4, and then we had one person that voted 2, but there wasn't anyone that voted a 5. So I don't think there's a very strong opinion about the liveliness. But looking at all of the different traits, there were some of them that stood out because they had a lot of votes on one end or the other, right? For example, warmth, as I was showing here, it's mostly on the ends where you would say that remote.com should be more warm and outgoing than impersonal and formal. But another trait, which is the opposite, is abstractness, right? And so abstractness, you would say that it should be more grounded and practical than abstract and impractical. And so these were some of the traits that I found were interesting. Also social boldness, more socially bold and uninhibited than shy and hesitant. Privateness, more genuine, open than private, non-disclosing. Openness to change, more experimental, free thinking than traditional, conservative. And self-reliance, more resourceful, individualistic than a joiner, follower dependent. And finally, perfectionism, more organized, self-disciplined than undisciplined and impulsive. And the idea with these traits is to identify which personality traits you had a more, as a collective, the four of you had a more strong opinion and agreed more on what the personality should be, and the result of this should be to translate these traits into something like, let me show you here, into something like this, right? So we would say that remote.com, well, this is not a good example. Let me open this one. So this is an example for MailChimp. So for example, MailChimp, whenever they're designing the product or writing content in a more generic way without a specific situation, they would say that the personality of the brand and the product should be fun but not childish, funny but not goofy, powerful but not complicated, hip but not alienating. And so this is where we want to get, right? We want to get to a list of traits, more like the principles of if a person would behave, if remote would behave as a person, what would they show and how would they speak and talk? And hopefully this will help you make the best decisions collectively as to how they should behave. There are some interesting neutral traits: liveliness, real consciousness, sensitivity, and intention. So let me show you the results here. So liveliness, as I showed, we had 3 people voting a 4 and then 1 person voting a 2. I don't know exactly who voted what. So yeah, Eduardo voted a 2 for liveliness. And I was wondering, for these that didn't have a specific and that weren't consensual, Eduardo, is there anything you want to talk about the liveliness traits? Do you have a strong opinion whether it should be more lively or less lively?
I think it goes to the point that I made. I think it should be simple. So I think it goes a bit with that. I don't remember specifically what liveliness, self-reliant, not so much about the silent part, but the seriousness and the directness of the message. I think it's more in that message kind of thing.
Okay.
But I think that's pretty much it, because sometimes there were some points on both sides, because I didn't think they were opposed to each other, but in this case I think it's more about the seriousness.
Yeah, and again, this is not very scientific, okay? I know, Job, you're very much into science and neuroscience, but so this is not scientific at all. It's just an idea to get some data and some inclination on where you would stand and what you think about remote. And we have to take all of this with a grain of salt, right? So the other one was rule consciousness. I think this one was really funny because no one seemed to agree on what it was. And some of these traits are very difficult to score, right? So for example, let me see, rule consciousness. So expedient, non-conforming, disregards rules, self-indulgent, and then on the other end, rule conscious, dutiful, consciousness conforming, moralistic state. So how would you score your company, your brand, your product on this scale? So some of these are very difficult, right?
I found it like this one. Oh yeah, we are non-conforming, but we don't disregard rules. Are we self-indulgent? No. Okay, so maybe more to the right of the 3. And I'm like, no, but we're not conforming. And are we rule bound? I don't know. This one, I felt like, well, whatever. I don't even remember what I scored, and I could have scored any one of them.
Yeah, no, that's exactly. It's very difficult to score some of these. Some of these are very straightforward, like for example, social boldness, even the warmth part, like being more outgoing or more introvert. But others are more difficult. Another one, sensitivity. Let me see. Yeah, sensitivity. Yeah, so we had 2 people on a 5, then 1 person went all the way to 1. So there wasn't a very consensus here. And
I'm sorry.
It was you?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, we that's also good, right? We need someone to be the opposite so we can balance this off.
That was my
and then Thank you, Eduardo. And then tension. There was no consensus at all. And it leads me to think that you weren't very sure about this trait in particular, which might be very difficult to apply to a brand or a product. So looking at these strong traits that I have listed here, is there any trait that you think should be represented on this list that I didn't add here? Or that you feel strongly that, oh no, I really think that remote.com should be very sensitive or very dominant?
I think to me, the strongest in my mind that I align with our brand from this list would be social boldness, right? I think, and then I take it more as like socially, as in like terms of socially between humans, being bold about our statements, and and second to that, probably the warmth and openness to change, something like that. But yeah, I think being bold is something I want us to be a strong voice in every sense of the word. And I rather like put us like have a strong opinion about something and be public about it and receive criticism than to be vanilla about everything and not to receive any criticism, right? Like I rather lose a customer over having made a hard decision than to please everybody, and in the end, no one.
Yeah.
And open to change, I believe.
Yeah, I think that's probably the second one. Yeah, I agree, Luis.
Cool. Okay, so yeah, I just want to quickly go over the response and engagement examples, and I know these can be very, very difficult to answer, and we had a very wide mix, and there's no consensus here, and I wasn't expecting to have a very clear answer. I think this was more also of these questions of response and engagement were more to have you thinking about what you replied before, right? And the person the image that you uploaded here, and why did you choose that image, and how that would be represented in both content and also different solutions and engagement methods. And so there's very different responses. So we have, like, for example, for greeting welcome, we have from yo, 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 exclamation mark to hello, Bob, period. So yeah, very different. For success, we have from awesome sauce, your list has been important, to you have been successful in this task, which is, again, very different. User error feedback, don't forget an address, exclamation mark, please check your entry and try again, please enter a value. So we have very different in the spectrum of being very robot-like, or the complete opposite, which is be very funny. We have everything in between, right? And for engagement, we also have very different things as well. And I hope that maybe some of these you can actually use or inspire you to do something in the product, right? And so this was more to get you thinking, and at least some of the things could be used afterwards. Is there anything in these engagements or responses that anyone wants to comment on? Or
I don't know. I wrote a meta comment somewhere as well that I think if you are doing something wrong, then you have to always be clear to the user. And I think that sort of shows from all the previous parts. And here we were sort of pushed by you, Pedro, to write something funny or something interesting, or at least think more about what we would write. But in many cases, I think if you have if you miss a field in a form, like you should just say that you missed that field in the form, because it's really fun if there's a joke the first time, and never again, right? So I think that was it was definitely an interesting exercise, but I think even in reality I would be less fun than I was in the answers to you. But the engagement things, I mean, the long response here is of me with many different things. I had
But
1 million ideas, and the more I thought about it, the more I had. So I just wrote down a few things. But
I think those are like the small details. Imagine like
Yeah.
a missing field. Like the first message you show is like, there's a missing field. Then the person submits again. There's the same missing field. Instead of that, you just say, dude, come on. I mean, it could be a completely different thing, but still have both.
Yeah, there's this the company that built Tunnel Bear. They have this password manager, and if you get the password wrong,
Oh, so good.
every
Yeah.
time the bear gets more and more disappointed in you. It's very funny. And I think something like that can definitely work. But I think it's hard to get those kind of things wrong. You know.
Cool. And yeah, let me see if there's anything in particular. Yeah. Cool. So, what did you think about this exercise? Now, that's what I wanted to hear from you. Is do you think it was valuable, not only doing the exercise, but now going through the findings and seeing what everyone responded, and also what you had in common, or was it a waste of time and you don't see how this can help you at all?
Eduardo goes first.
Ah, come on. I think it's really good. It's fine to see different opinions in some things and fine to be aligned in others. I think it's something that you work towards too. So I really liked it. For me, it's a bit more complex because I'm from the cave, so to say. So it's harder concepts, but I think it's good to just hear everyone out. So in that way, I think it's really useful.
Yeah, I thought it was nice as well, Pedro. I kind of feel like the parts where I wished we all got the same answer, we did. So I'm very satisfied about that. And it kind of feels like it sort of affirms my suspicion, and I think makes them concrete. So I like both the questionnaire and us going through it. So that was nice.
Okay.
yeah, I like also. It let me be creative in a way to answer those questions. Yeah, it was cool.
I think it's good for aligning the expectations of what we want to see out of this, right? Because every and each one of us has a different idea of what remote.com should be, right? Eduardo wants it to be a command line. I'll probably want to be something in the middle, and Jehovah has this crazy idea about magic fields, right? So it's good, and even though we say roughly the same things, it's good to align the expectation of what it can be, right? And then what we actually wanted to materialize it to. So in that sense, it's good for calibration.
Yeah. Cool. Yeah. So thank you so much for giving that feedback. So next steps from this. So the idea, I hope everyone is aware of what this exercise was about, the design persona. And as I said, the idea here is to then compile all of this information and get to something like, so let me open up that again. So the idea, let me share my screen, is to get something like this, right? So get not a PDF document. The idea would be to integrate this somewhere in your handbook or whatever you think it makes sense. And I'll leave that up to you, Yob and everyone to tell me where I should send a merge request to. But it's to have kind of like the persona of your brand, right? And in this example of MailChimp, they basically write an overview of who is remote.com, or in this case, who is MailChimp. They say, like, in this case, they have their mascot, so it's for them it's pretty easy to personify their brand and their design persona. but for other companies and brands, it would be different. So they have this overview, then they have the brand traits. As I said, they're more like the principles, like do this, but not that, right? So have these do and don'ts. They also have this personality map, which I'm not a really fan of, and it's a different thing, so I'll skip over it. But then they have also some things that talk about the voice, also some copy examples, and these are the examples that I put in the survey for you to be inspired and know what I was expecting. And then they also have some things that talk about the visual lexicon, the color, the typography, general style notes, and then the engagement methods. And basically all of this that you see here, it can be applied because it's a design persona. You can apply everything that is written here and all of this information to not only a brand, but also a product, an advertisement, a tweet, a newsletter, any kind of communication and touch point that you have with customers, clients, and even internally with employees. You can apply this and just design your experience to make sure it's always consistent. And I feel like this is where most of companies and brands fail, is that they define some things that are very objective, like, okay, we should always use this hexadecimal color and we should always use our logo this way. But then when they talk about things that are basically in between the lines and are generally unspoken, that's where they get it wrong and you have this inconsistency. And so, yeah, I'll probably look into all of the information that we've gathered so far and try to summarize it and create a merge request. And I'll ask for your opinion in the merge request so we can keep this open and async as possible. Thoughts, ideas, questions, comments?
Oh, this is great. Well, do you want to make the merge request like on the short term, Pedro, or this is only at the end of the process that you want to do it?
I want to do it in the short term because this design persona, that's a good question, because doing this right now and agreeing as a collective to what the design persona of remote.com is will help us make sure that the brand is communicating and is aligned with that design persona. Or else if we don't do this right now, I don't have this agreement and set the expectations together, I might go on and do some visual brand explorations that don't align necessarily with everyone's feelings and thoughts.
Okay, so I'll make sure to today send you some instructions on how to document this. I guess so. Like a markdown document is fine, right?
Sorry, I lost you for a little bit. Can you repeat?
I will send you something today where you can document this, and then you can just edit a markdown document, and that should be sufficient, right?
Yeah, whatever works. I can fork the handbook or whatever you want.
Yeah, no, I'll do that. I'll prepare a page where you can just edit.
Okay, cool. So yeah, that's my part, what I'm going to do. And then once we agree on this, I'll start doing the more visual brand explorations. Anything else anyone wants to say, comment? What did you think about the competitive analysis? I know some of you commented about it, but is there anything in particular that you found was something you weren't expecting?
Not really.
No.
I think it's interesting though, Pedro. I think it was nice what you did with the colors. That was kind of cool to get an overview like that, and with the recommendations you had. I think it's very easy for us to default to our favorite colors. Like I heard Luis already many times saying, we have to do everything in Coinbase blue. So it's good to have a bit more of an informed opinion about that, which I thought.
Yeah. And so if, still about the competitors, so that right now is a Google spreadsheet. It's not very open. So feel free, I don't know if you want to do it or not, but feel free to take it out and put it somewhere in a handbook or internal documentation if you want to.
No, I'll make it I will copy. If we can use the same sheet, as long as you don't remove it, I can just make it a public spreadsheet, and we can just link to it. So we don't have to do any work to copy it or something. And just make it a public document.
I think it might be better if you make a copy of it to. Do you have a shared Google Drive for the company?
Of course we have.
Yeah. Okay. So yeah, I think it would be better if you did that. So you have everything on your end and don't rely on me.
All right. Yeah, no, I'll do that and I'll link that.
So if I get run over by a bus, you still have access to it. Cool. Yeah, we're almost on time. If there's anything else, or if there's nothing else you want to talk about, cool.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to see the first visual stuff, Pedro. I think that's what we are all, this is like a drum roll until then. So I'm extremely excited to start to see that.
Yeah, this I completely understand. And all of this back work and research, it's fundamental, right? Or else I could be doing many different directions just to I can do like one that is like very different and the other one which is the complete opposite, and one which is more in the middle, to know where you're looking, but that's not the way I think we should work. I think it's better if we align on these things, and then you have something that I really think that the visual design, maybe not the first directions, but as we continue to move forward in this process and project, I hope that everything is very predictable. And that you don't have that wow moment and that surprise. Oh wow, I wasn't really expecting nothing like this. I hope that it's as predictable as possible, because that would mean that we're all aligned and we all agree on the same things, and there are no surprises.
Cool. Yeah, that sounds great. I'm looking forward to the 4D logo that you'll make for us with Smell-O-Vision.
Yeah.
I'm setting up our YouTube channel as we speak, so this video will go there probably tomorrow, because I don't seem to figure out how to make a proper YouTube channel.
Yeah. Okay. I think for the YouTube channel, if you want to get the name in the channel, you need to have X number of subscribers or something like that.
Yeah, maybe.
Is 4 enough?
I don't think so.
We can do. I have at least 8 Google accounts, so I can do I can.
Yeah, cool. It was good seeing you all, and see you soon.
Likewise.
Thanks, Pedro.
Thanks, Pedro.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.